Hidden behind the sacred stone walls of the Vatican lies a fortress of silence, a place where faith and power have intertwined for centuries. To the millions who walk its marbled halls, it is the seat of holiness. But to those who dare to look deeper, it is a labyrinth of secrets, secrets that stretch across empires, continents, and millennia. And tonight, we are prying open one of history's most forbidden doors. Before we step through, remember, uncovering truth is a dangerous journey, but also a necessary one. If you want to keep traveling with us into the shadows of history, make sure to like this video and subscribe, because what you're about to hear is only the beginning. One of the greatest enigmas the Vatican may hold is nothing less than the body of a man who once ruled the known world. A king so ambitious that his name is still whispered with awe, Alexander the Great. For more than 2,000 years, scholars, archaeologists, and treasure hunters have searched for his tomb. Ancient texts tell us that his body was laid to rest in the city of Alexandria, where emperors like Caesar and Augustus once knelt before it. His sarcophagus was said to glitter with gold, his embalmed body displayed as a symbol of power. But then, mysteriously, history swallowed him whole. The tomb vanished. The body disappeared. And the world was left with nothing but theories. But one theory stands above the rest, both shocking and sacrilegious. It suggests that Alexander's remains never vanished at all. Instead, they were stolen, smuggled across the Mediterranean, and quietly mistaken for someone else. According to this hypothesis, the mummified conqueror now rests in Venice, inside the Basilica di San Marco, worshipped for centuries not as Alexander, but as Street Mark the Evangelist. Imagine the weight of that possibility, that pilgrims and priests have prayed before not a saint of the church, but a pagan emperor who once declared himself a god. Imagine that the prayers of the faithful, the tears of the desperate, and the rituals of the holy have all been directed to the bones of a man who sought to dominate the earth. If this is true, it is not just a mistake. It is a cover-up of breathtaking proportions, an erasure so complete that it redefined the line between empire and religion. And it leaves us with one haunting question. If Alexander the Great lies hidden within the heart of Christendom, what other kings, gods, and conquerors remain buried in its vaults? Every religion claims its uniqueness. Every sacred story is said to be divinely inspired, standing apart from all others. But sometimes, when we peel back the veil of history, we find that myths are not born in isolation. They are inherited, reshaped, and reborn. And in the case of Christianity, the parallels may be more unsettling than the faithful dare to admit. Long before the birth of Christ, along the fertile banks of the Nile, the ancient Egyptians worshipped a god called Horus. He was the falcon-headed son of Osiris and Isis, a divine figure whose story shaped the spiritual imagination of an entire civilization. Yet when we look closely at the fragments of his myth, the echoes with Christianity become impossible to ignore. Horus was said to have been born to a virgin mother. His birth was announced by a divine messenger, marked by a shining star in the heavens. 3 wise men, shepherds of the desert, came to honor him. As he grew, he gathered disciples. He healed the sick. He cast out demons. He even raised the dead. And when his mission neared its end, Horus was betrayed, crucified, buried, and resurrected after 3 days. To the casual ear, this sounds like a retelling of the Gospels themselves. And that is exactly what has ignited centuries of debate. Are these uncanny similarities mere coincidence? Or is the story of Christ a rewritten echo of an older Egyptian myth, retold to give legitimacy to a new faith? Of course, the Church rejects this idea as heresy. Many scholars argue that the details don't fully align, that Horus was never truly crucified, that some versions list only 4 disciples instead of 12, that his virgin birth may be a mistranslation. But even with these disputes, the parallels that remain are impossible to erase. And here lies the deeper, more chilling possibility, that religions are not born out of divine originality, but out of a chain of borrowed myths. One story repackaged into another. A cycle of symbols passed from Egypt, to Greece, to Rome, and finally into the heart of Christendom. If that is true, then the Vatican does not merely safeguard the truth of Christ, it safeguards the evidence of a far older deception. A blueprint of control, designed to take the stories that already comforted the masses and weave them into a new structure of authority. So the question is no longer whether Jesus was real. The question is whether the story itself was ever original, or whether it was simply the greatest adaptation in human history. There was once a time when the world's wisdom was gathered in a single place. A temple of knowledge so vast that it was said no question went unanswered within its walls. This was the Library of Alexandria, the beating heart of human intellect, where more than 400,000 scrolls recorded the secrets of the heavens and the earth. Here, scholars studied the stars, mapped the oceans, experimented with medicine, and wrote philosophies that might have altered the destiny of civilizations. And yet, today, almost nothing of it remains. A few ashes. A whisper in ancient texts. A memory. We are told it was destroyed, burned when Julius Caesar set fire to his ships, or dismantled by religious zealots who feared knowledge that threatened their faith. But there is another possibility, one far more disturbing. Some believe that the most precious scrolls of Alexandria were never lost at all. They were stolen, carried across seas and centuries, hidden away from the eyes of the world. And where else would they rest if not in the sealed vaults of the Vatican? The Vatican's archives stretch over miles of shelves. Locked chambers hold documents so secret that only a handful of eyes have ever seen them. Within these shadowed halls could lie the lost inventions of forgotten civilizations, maps of continents undiscovered until millennia later, and treatises on the human soul that could shatter our understanding of existence itself. But the mystery does not end with Alexandria. Beneath the sands of Egypt, in a rubbish heap of discarded papyrus, archaeologists once uncovered something even more dangerous: forbidden scriptures. Among them was the first Apocalypse of James, a text claiming that the world is not the creation of a divine father, but of a false god, a jailer who forged the material world to imprison the soul. Imagine the implications of such a teaching, that life itself is not a blessing, but a trap. That faith, obedience, and ritual are not pathways to salvation, but shackles forged to keep humanity from discovering its true freedom. It is no wonder these texts were condemned as heresy. It is no wonder they were hunted, burned, and silenced. But if even fragments survived in a desert trash heap, what lies preserved in the Vatican's underground vaults? Could there be entire books of teachings from Jesus that the world was never meant to see? The tragedy of the Library of Alexandria is not only that knowledge was destroyed, but that knowledge may still exist, carefully hidden, deliberately silenced. And it forces us to ask, what would happen if tomorrow those truths were unleashed upon the world? For centuries, the Catholic tradition has told us that the incorruptibility of a body is a sign of holiness. That when a saint's flesh resists decay, it is proof of divine favor. Pilgrims have traveled across continents to gaze upon these preserved figures, lying in crystal coffins as if untouched by time. But what if the truth is not miraculous at all? What if the bodies that refuse to die have been deliberately preserved, not by heaven, but by human hands? Consider Pope John XXIII. When he died in 1963, his body was placed in the Vatican. Decades later, when his coffin was opened, he appeared almost lifelike, as though merely asleep. To the faithful, it was hailed as a miracle. Yet behind closed doors, experts whispered a different explanation. Modern embalming, carried out discreetly, using techniques borrowed not from Christian ritual but from the ancient Egyptians themselves. Between 1975 and 2008, a secretive team of Vatican specialists is believed to have embalmed at least 31 saints and prominent church figures. Not relics of divine incorruptibility, but carefully managed bodies, treated with chemicals and resins, wrapped and sealed like pharaohs of old. It is not speculation, it is documented fact, though the Church has never publicly admitted how deep the practice goes. And not every attempt was successful. When Pope Pius XII died in 1958, his body was embalmed in a way meant to echo the burial of Christ, wrapped in linen, sealed in a coffin. But something went terribly wrong. The corpse emitted such a foul odor that a guard fainted from the stench. His skin turned black. His nose collapsed and fell away. This was no miracle. This was failure, hidden beneath the weight of holy silence. But the deception does not end with saints. Within the Vatican once lay two mummies, proudly displayed as treasures of its fascination with Egypt. For centuries, they were believed to be relics of an ancient civilization. Until modern DNA testing shattered the illusion. These were not Egyptians at all. They were ordinary Europeans from the Middle Ages, no more than 500 years old, fakes, crafted during a time when mummy mania swept through Europe, when powdered mummy flesh was sold as medicine, and fabricated relics were worth fortunes. So what does this mean? It means that even in the most sacred halls on earth, death has been manipulated. Bodies dressed as saints, pharaohs forged into trophies, relics manufactured to inspire awe. Faith built not always on miracles, but sometimes on chemistry, illusion, and the quiet art of preservation. And here is the question that should haunt us. Does fabricating the miraculous betray faith, or preserve it? If incorruptibility is engineered, does it still inspire the same devotion? Or does it expose a desperate attempt to hold together a crumbling symbol of the divine? The Vatican may never answer these questions. But as long as pilgrims kneel before bodies that refuse to decay, the tension between miracle and manipulation will remain. And perhaps, the greatest mystery is not whether these figures are saints or emperors, but whether humanity can bear the truth when myths are stripped away.